Humans, despite our capacity for complex societies, are not naturally inclined towards large, organized groups. Our earliest ancestors, much like our closest primate relatives, likely lived in small, dispersed bands. These bands were focused on survival, their movements dictated by the availability of food and water. Their primary interactions were with their small, familiar groups. Life in these early bands was perilous. Predators, disease, and starvation were constant threats. Cooperation within the band was essential for survival, fostering a sense of interdependence. Yet, interactions with other bands were often marked by suspicion and hostility. Resources were scarce and competition for them was fierce. This inherent wariness towards outsiders is deeply ingrained in our biology. It's a survival mechanism honed over millennia, a legacy of our evolutionary past. While we have developed the capacity for large-scale cooperation, the instinct to view outsiders with caution lingers. This innate tendency towards smaller, self-reliant groups shaped the social landscape of early humans. It is within this context that we begin to see the first glimmers of more complex social structures. Early human societies, for the most part, existed without formal governments. They were small, nomadic groups, often consisting of no more than a few families. These societies were based on kinship and shared ancestry. Everyone knew their place and role within the group. Decisions were often made collectively, based on consensus and tradition. The absence of formal leadership did not necessarily mean chaos. Social norms, traditions, and a shared understanding of acceptable behavior served as a form of unwritten law. Elders, respected for their wisdom and experience, often held sway in decision-making. However, their authority was derived from respect, not from any codified power structure. This lack of formal government was not a conscious choice, it was a natural consequence of their lifestyle and the size of their groups. They were primarily concerned with basic survival, finding food, securing shelter, and protecting themselves from predators and rival bands. The concept of a ruling class or a centralized authority was simply unnecessary in this context. However, as these early humans began to transition from nomadic hunter-gatherers to more settled agricultural societies, the seeds of government began to sprout. The need to manage resources, resolve disputes, and coordinate larger-scale activities created the demand for more formal structures of leadership and decision-making. The stage was set for the emergence of more complex forms of social organization. As humans gradually shifted from nomadic foraging to more settled lifestyles, the need for larger and more organized groups became increasingly apparent. This shift coincided with the development of agriculture, which allowed for greater population density and the accumulation of resources. Clans and tribes emerged as a natural progression from smaller, family-based bands. Clans, typically composed of several extended families claiming descent from a common ancestor, provided a broader social safety net. They offered increased security, shared resources, and a stronger collective identity. Tribes, often consisting of multiple clans united by language, territory, or shared customs, represented a further step towards larger and more complex social structures. This transition from small, autonomous bands to larger interconnected groups brought about new challenges and opportunities. While kinship ties remained important, the need for more structured leadership became evident. Disputes over resources, territorial boundaries, and internal conflicts required mechanisms for resolution. The seeds of governance were sown as individuals with particular skills or charisma rose to prominence within these groups. The emergence of clans and tribes marked a pivotal step in the development of human societies. They laid the foundation for larger, more complex social organizations capable of supporting agriculture, trade, and specialized labor. This, in turn, paved the way for the emergence of chiefdoms and eventually states. The transition from clans to societies ruled by chiefs and kings was driven by conflict. As groups grew, competition for land, water, and resources intensified. This created a demand for strong leaders to organize warriors and resolve disputes. Successful warlords emerged as powerful figures. Their courage and strategic acumen earned them respect and loyalty. This often translated into political power, with warlords becoming chiefs or kings. The spoils of war further consolidated their power. Conflict and conquest played a significant role in early state development. Chiefs and kings expanded territories, creating complex political entities. This led to rudimentary forms of government, hierarchies, and taxation. However, the rise of chiefs and kings did not always lead to stable societies. Power concentration often resulted in exploitation and social stratification. These forces also sowed the seeds of internal conflicts and downfall. Echoes of democracy then and now. While the rise of chiefs and kings marked a shift towards more hierarchical societies, it's important to note that elements of democracy were often present in early human groups. These early forms of democracy, though vastly different from modern systems, reflected a desire for collective decision-making and a voice for the people. In many tribal societies, decisions affecting the entire group were often made through councils or assemblies. These gatherings provided a platform for elders, clan leaders, and respected individuals to voice their opinions and influence the group's direction. While these councils were not elected bodies in the modern sense, they provided a mechanism for consensus building and representation of different interests within the group. These early forms of participatory governance stand in contrast to the absolute rule often associated with early monarchies. They demonstrate that the desire for a say in matters affecting the community is not a modern invention, but rather a deeply rooted human impulse. The echoes of these early democratic practices can be seen in the development of modern democratic systems. The principles of representation, deliberation, and consensus building, though refined and formalized over centuries, find their roots in the communal decision-making processes of our early ancestors. The quest for a system of governance that balances the needs of the individual with the interests of the collective is an ongoing human endeavor, one that stretches back to the dawn of civilization. The forge of war advancing tools and organization. While war brought about destruction and suffering, it also served as a catalyst for technological and organizational advancements in early human societies. The need to outmaneuver and overpower adversaries fueled innovation in weaponry, strategy, and societal organization. The development of new weapons, from simple clubs and spears to more sophisticated bows and arrows, was a direct consequence of intertribal conflicts. As warfare became more common and more deadly, the pressure to create more effective weapons intensified. This, in turn, led to improvements in material science, craftsmanship, and the understanding of physics and ballistics. Beyond weaponry, warfare also drove advancements in logistics, communication, and social organization. The need to mobilize and deploy large groups of warriors, often over long distances, required sophisticated planning, coordination, and a clear chain of command. This led to the development of early forms of military strategy, communication systems using drums or smoke signals, and a more hierarchical social structure with specialized roles for warriors, scouts, and commanders. These innovations, while born out of the necessity of warfare, had far-reaching implications that extended beyond the battlefield. The development of new materials and manufacturing techniques found applications in other areas, such as agriculture and construction. Improved communication and organizational skills proved invaluable in managing larger and more complex societies. In this way, the crucible of war, while destructive, also forged advancements that shaped the trajectory of human civilization. War's impact on social structures. The constant threat of war profoundly impacted early human societies. Groups clashed over resources and territory, leading to more organized and efficient warfare. This shifted societies from egalitarian to hierarchical, with specialized roles and a clear chain of command. Successful war leaders rose to prominence, becoming chiefs, warlords, and eventually kings. This concentration of power led to social hierarchies, with warriors in privileged positions. Supporting a warrior class led to taxes, tributes, and forced labor. While effective in war, this power concentration could lead to oppression and social unrest. The dawn of law. As societies grew, the need for sophisticated conflict resolution systems became apparent. Disputes over land and resources could no longer be addressed informally. This led to codified laws and formal enforcement mechanisms. Early laws were rooted in tradition, passed down orally. Customary laws were enforced through social pressure and punishment. As societies grew, explicit legal codes became necessary. Written laws on stone tablets provided a concrete basis for order. These codes, often attributed to gods or kings, helped maintain order. Establishing laws was just the first step. Effective enforcement was crucial. Institutions and individuals were tasked with upholding the law.